Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm so grateful you've chosen to spend some of your very valuable time with me as I talk about a couple of very fun events that happened recently. I am recording this on Monday, June 17th. I'm not exactly sure when this will actually be posted or when you'll be watching it, but we're in mid-June here, and physically, I'm finally kind of coming back from that awful time I had in April and May with the physical health. Now, mentally, we're struggling with some stuff. I mean, life just won't let me sit back and go, I can finally take a breath. Just to really briefly summarize, basically a few years back when I had to take my ex-wife's name off of my home mortgage, I fought with the bank for about 16 months altogether, where I was sending in the paperwork for the mortgage application. The bank was saying, you don't have enough income as a single income person on disability to carry a mortgage on this house, and so send us more paperwork. So I was sending more paperwork and more, and finally, after a whole year went by, they said, oh, now that we're into a new year, we need updated paperwork. So I had to basically start from scratch and send in the same paperwork again and again and again, and this went on for, like I said, 15 or 16 months. And finally, a loved one had pity on me and stepped forward to be a co-signer on my mortgage, so I was finally able to secure the mortgage on the house that I've been living in for the past 12, 13 years or so, basically the house where my kids have grown up. And so that was great, but just as I was kind of getting released from the hospital and finding my footing again, I ended up in a situation where my co-signer, who thankfully helped me keep the house, their own mortgage was coming up for renewal, so they said to me, unfortunately, we got to remove our name from your mortgage so that we can have the best chances of renewing our own mortgage. So I contacted my own bank and said, can we just remove this person's name from my mortgage? They said, well, here's all of the paperwork to reapply for a mortgage from scratch. So I'm like, oh God, here we go again with this paperwork process, and just not knowing if my single disability income is going to be enough to get them to approve me again. So because of my co-signer situation, I can't let this process drag on like it did last time. So one way or the other, it's going to have to kind of reach a conclusion fairly quickly. But in the meantime, I'm doing loads of paperwork, feeling very worried about losing my house. And I'm also doing a bunch of paperwork for the Canada Revenue Agency because they don't like something about my 2023 taxes. So there's a bunch of paperwork to do there too. They have issues with the way the dependents are being claimed in the taxes because I have 50% custody of my two boys, so that creates a bit of a complicated situation from a taxes front. So that's what I'm struggling through right now. Thankfully, like I said, the physical health and strength is coming back again, but you know, life has always got to be throwing something at you, eh? Anyways, though, I'm here to talk about fun things because there was a brief period of almost 2 weeks in between when I was released from the hospital and when a virus hit myself and my two boys and took us out for a few more weeks. There was a good week and a half or so there where the health wasn't a huge concern for anybody, where I managed to get to 2 fun events. So the first event I'll be talking about is a concert where I got to see my very favorite live performer, a band called the Dreadnoughts, play in Toronto. And then just a few days later, I was able to take my kids to a local medieval fair or Renaissance festival type of thing. So I'm going to talk about those 2 things. As usual, I'll have the video broken down into chapters, so if there's a part of it that's not of interest to you, you can skip forward to the parts that are of interest to you, and let's get right into it then. I've written everything down here so that I don't forget any details as I talk about these 2 events. So, as I had mentioned, I had purchased tickets to see a band called the Dreadnoughts play in Toronto, and I went to my ticket purchasing website where I have an account so I can purchase tickets, and I brought up its history, and I was like, oh, this is pretty much all the Dreadnoughts shows I've been to in the past 8 years. I think it was my 4th time seeing the band in the past 8 years, so they are certainly a band that I prioritize, where if they are in Toronto or Southern Ontario, I make a point of going to see them because they are just such an amazing live band. Fortunately, I was released from hospital in time to see them. I was released basically the previous week, so a week after I had gotten home from the hospital. They played on Thursday, May 23rd at a little venue called the Hard Luck Bar in Toronto on Dundas Street near Bathurst. This is a venue I had never been to before, but when I looked up where it was on the map, I noticed that it was only one major street away from a board gaming store in Toronto called Meeple Mart, which, as far as I know, is the biggest board gaming store in Toronto, perhaps, just from my limited experience of checking out some of the local board game shops. I think it's the biggest one in Toronto. So when I looked it up, I saw how close they were to Meeple Mart. I thought, oh, I definitely have to get there in time to check out the board game shop. Now, the thing is, Meeple Mart's closing hours were 1 hour before the doors opening time for the concert. So I think Meeple Mart was closing at about 8 p.m. and then the doors open for the concert was 9 p.m., something along those lines. So I thought, okay, I'll just go early, go check out the board games and go to the punk show. Now, my first problem was following my mapping system in the car, because apparently my mapping system saw all the rush hour traffic and decided to route me off the highway onto city streets, and it had me drive all the way through the city of Toronto during rush hour to get down to Dundas and Bathurst, and it took me way longer than I thought it was going to. So by the time I had found parking right near the venue there, it was less than 10 minutes until Meeple Mart was going to be closing. So I parked the car and just started running down Dundas Street there. Now, the thing is, looking on Google Maps, the distance from the Hard Luck Bar to Meeple Mart was only about this far. Like I said, one major street. But when it came to getting there on foot, it was a lot longer than I anticipated. So later on, I checked on Google Maps, and it turns out the distance was about 1 kilometer. They estimated a 14-minute walk time on Google Maps. Like I said, I had less than 10 minutes to get there. So I ran. I did not jog. I full-on ran to Meeple Mart just 1 week after getting out of hospital, having lost 15 pounds in weight and being so sick. So I pushed myself as hard as I possibly could. I arrive at the shop just as the guy's coming out to lock the door. I'm standing there totally out of breath. The guy is looking at me and he's like, "Is there something quick you wanted to pick up today?" And I said, well, I mean, I've just run here to get here on time, so I wouldn't mind just popping in to get something. I said, "Do you actually have any Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings booster packs at the moment?" Because like they're pretty much sold out everywhere locally. Anywhere I've looked around here where I am, nobody has any more of those. And he said, "Yeah, actually I think we do." So I was able to pop into the shop for a quick minute. I grabbed 2 Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings draft booster packs, stuck them in my pocket, and then turned around and started walking the other way. So another part of my plan was, I knew, like I said, I had an hour and a half between the board game shop and the start of the concert, because yeah, the doors open at 9 o'clock, but the first band probably wouldn't be hitting the stage till 9:30, quarter to 10 probably, as happens at most shows. But the other good thing was the College Street location of Snakes and Lattes, the board gaming cafe, was only about half a kilometer north of the board game venue. So from Meeple Mart, I walked the 1.5 kilometers up to Snakes and Lattes. Took me about 20 minutes, and I was just hacking my lungs out the whole way there, because in the hospital, when they did the upper endoscopy, my throat was so scratched from the camera going down my throat, and running in the polluted Toronto air just irritated it so much. I was just coughing and coughing the whole way to Snakes and Lattes. Thankfully, I got everything settled and under control by the time I was able to walk over there, and got myself a table, I didn't have to pay the $10 game playing fee because I was just there by myself, and I essentially had packed a couple of board game rule books to bring with me so that I could read some rule books ahead of Paul coming over on the following Saturday to play games with me. So I ordered a snack and a drink and sat there and read some rule books. Now, one thing it made me realize is that I don't go out to eat anywhere anymore, just purely for financial reasons. I'm just not in a position to be able to do that. And sitting there in this cafe, I'm looking at food prices and going, wow, it's $8 for a little brownie that I ordered for a snack. And then when they brought the bill out to pay for, I got a drink as well. So when they brought the bill out to pay for the brownie and drink and the automatic pay system, they have this suggested tip. The smallest suggested tip on there, I think, was 20%. And then it went up from there in terms of the automatic tip levels you could choose. And I will say that I've always been a very generous tipper. I mean, 20 to 25% would probably be standard for me most of the time, because I know that people who work in service have terrible jobs, they deal with a lot of rude people, and they get paid nothing. They really rely on their tips to get by. So I do try to tip generously, but it's a whole other thing when the food prices are incredibly high, plus the $10 per person to play games, plus the expectation that I'm going to tip at this certain level just really rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I could do a whole video about tipping culture and how absolutely obscene it is. The whole thing should be done away with. We should pay servers and other people a livable wage. These businesses should not get away with depending on their customers to pay their staff. They should pay their staff well. Yeah, they can adjust their prices accordingly, but the whole tipping culture in Canada, North America in general, is pretty outrageous. That people should be paid well and not rely on the generosity of individuals to get by. But anyways, the other thing that I noticed on their website when I was looking it up later too was they have this thing that says 18% auto gratuity for all groups of 6+ guests and $30 minimum spend per guest for all groups of 11 to 19 guests, which I'm like, what? $30 minimum spend per person plus 18% auto gratuity? It's for a board game cafe. This is wild to me. I can't really believe that. Anyways, I shouldn't be ranting. This was a fun day. So it's because of all this that, I mean, I'd rather just take my own, if I really want to go out to play games with somebody, just take my games to a regular pub or cafe, find a table, sit down, play games with a friend, whatever, and not deal with all those extra expenses. I guess they can get away with it because people are apparently willing to pay it. So, I mean, if people will do it, they can get away with it. But I can't see myself going back to a board game cafe like that, especially since, you know, I have my own board game collection. I don't need to rely on going there to play games. So anyways, I did enjoy just kind of relaxing there, reading some board game rule books, and while I was sitting there, I decided I would crack open my 2 booster packs of Lord of the Rings cards that I had just picked up, and open the first pack, and I pull out, start looking through the cards, and wouldn't you know it, I got the One Ring. The One Ring, the Ring of Power. Now, obviously, this isn't the one of one ring. There was a special edition of this particular card where they only made 1 copy, and that was actually found by somebody in Toronto. I heard that 401 Games in Toronto was where that card was purchased, and then that guy turned around and sold it to the musician Post Malone for like $2.5 million or something like that. But anyways, it was the same card, the One Ring, but not the special version of it. However, that being said, it's still a very limited card. There's not a lot of them out there. And when I immediately went to look up the price on mtggoldfish.com, they had that one card listed at $84 US or 115 Canadian. So immediately I was like, wow, this is incredible, amazing. And when I just looked it up now, how long has it been? Like about 3 weeks now it's been. The price has actually gone up a further $10 US to $94 US, or 130 Canadian dollars this card is. So my first immediate thought was, I'm putting this up on Facebook Marketplace and I'm gonna get $100 for it, or 120, or whatever I can sell it for, because again, financial things, I'm not in a position where I can just play with a card that could bring me in $100. So as special as it would be to have that particular card, I'm just not in that sort of position. So my initial thought was to put it up on Facebook Marketplace and get the $100 or so for it. And then when I saw how much the price had increased in just a few weeks, now I'm thinking, maybe I should hang on to this thing. I wonder, as this Lord of the Rings set ages and people stop finding any more of these One Ring cards, I wonder if that value is going to continue to go up. Should I speculate on my one valuable Magic the Gathering card and just hold on to it for a while, see how the price goes? I don't know, maybe I will, but regardless, it was a very exciting thing to find. So I was already having a fun day with getting out to this concert here, but my day got that much better when I cracked that open from the Magic the Gathering deck. Anyways, though, I left Snakes and Lattes at about 8:30 or so and walked down to the Hard Luck Bar. It's just one of those places where on the outside you'll blink if you miss it. You'll miss it if you blink while you're driving down Dundas Street there. But like I said, I've never been to this particular venue before. I walk in the front doors. There's this really narrow staircase that goes up to the 3rd floor of this building, and the bar itself is this very long rectangular room with low ceilings, and it was hot as hell, just incredibly hot in this little room. So I found myself a stool at the very back of the bar there, and was just kind of plunked myself down in a stool. To the right of me was the bar where they were selling drinks. To the left of me, they were selling the band merch. And then straight ahead, way on the other side of this rectangular room, was the little stage where the bands were playing. And the first band up was a band called Pink Leather Jackets, a local band from Toronto. They were a melodic punk band with a few slower songs that sounded more like kind of alternative rock than punk rock.
So what if my pocket's full of mints, my car's a piece of shit, and my heart is breaking? I kept running and gave it all I had, and I never looked back, and it just kept going on to the better days. Everything we get wrong is a choice that you can make, and we can still have fun and take care of everything. Getting in some sun, take care of everything. Never gonna stop us. So what if we traveled off the grid? We had a couple kids and we just kept going. Well, I love it and give it all I have, and I never look back.
But they did have really nice vocals, really nice melodies, and they put on a really great show overall. The second opening band was a band called Doghouse Rose, and they were also locally from Toronto. They were also a melodic pop punk type band, but they were very high tempo and just really kept up this kick you in the ass pace throughout the entire set. That was just really impressive. I have to say, I do love punk bands that have female vocalists, but Doghouse Rose was more of a pop punk princess type of vocal than a Brody Dahl growl that I really tend to prefer. Like, this type of Brody Dahl vocals are more of what I like. That being said, Doghouse Rose put on a great show, and they even had a little baby wall of death, which is this thing that you see, I think, more often in the heavy metal scene, where at a festival, when you have a huge crowd of people in front of a festival stage, they'll have all the people in the front and kind of the mosh pit area separate into two halves, and then on a signal from the band, like the start of the next song, the two sides will just sprint towards each other and collide and mix and mingle and get into a mosh pit with each other. So it was pretty fun that Doghouse Rose had this little mini wall of death with the people that were at the venue there. And to their credit too, they played a really long set for an opening band. I mean, I don't know exactly how long. It felt like it might have been even a full hour. But like I said before, it was just like an oven in that venue, and the pace of their songs were just so fast, and they just kept going and going and just kept up this energy throughout this really long set. So they did a superb job from my point of view. And then the third and final band were the band I was there to see, the Dreadnoughts from Vancouver, Canada. I would describe the Dreadnoughts as a folk punk band with a passion for polka and a very funny lead singer who is the one who makes their live experiences so much fun and essentially makes them my number one band to see live, because the singer is just cracking jokes through the whole set, interacting with the crowd, and just putting on a great performance in addition to playing great music.
Carpathia, vengeance, celestial call. She was the tinker to outsize them all. From the banks of the Mersey to the portals of Northumbria, Iron Princess and threw a bottle of wine, and watched as the giant set down in the tide. What lay ahead could no mortal define. Row Northumbria, row, me boys. Row Northumbria, row.
One thing I did notice is that they had a very different lineup from the last time I saw them, which must have been a few years ago, pre-pandemic, I guess the last time I saw them was, but they did not have very many recognizable band members other than their lead singer and their drummer, perhaps. Their bass player looked to me like he might have been Sean McNabb from a band called The Creep Show, who are more of a psychobilly band. I don't know if that was him or not. That's just who he reminded me of. I was looking for their former bass player, a guy named Andrew, because he's a big board gaming hobbyist, so I wondered if I would see him again, but he was not there, and instead they had this other bass player, as well as other musicians. They're pretty decent sized bands. I don't know, they must have had about 6 people on stage, I think.
A demonstration.
Now, a lot of the Dreadnoughts fans in the crowd were wearing their Polka's Not Dead t-shirts, and I will say that I made a mistake 6 years ago when I made another video talking about seeing the Dreadnoughts live, where I called their whole polka shtick a joke that had gotten old and was kind of worn out at this point. And the lead singer of the Dreadnoughts themselves commented in my video basically saying, "No, this isn't a joke. This is something we're actually quite passionate about." So I was like, okay, my bad. But yeah, just certainly during their show, they do break out into polka songs periodically. At one point, they had the crowd up front dancing in a big circle. At another point, they had the crowd form a conga polka line where everybody lined up back to back and was dancing around, and they basically told the crowd to conga line down the stairs to the outside of the building, basically conga through the streets, then come back up to the third floor, back up to the bar again. And so quite a few people took them up on that challenge and did that.
At the Raceway Park in Toledo, in the summer of 74, turn the fucking temperature down. This guy didn't having me, so I marched right across the floor. And the band played Who's Going to Be Strong. And remember all this shot right. I don't want to vacate. I turn you to say, hey, let's go time. Do you remember the fucking beach hot dogs? Do you remember the road on the bridge? Do you remember the night at the Jets Kings? Where the golden crown was yours? We saw Frankie in old Cincinnati.
The singer did apologize to the security at the venue for creating that slightly awkward situation where half the bar was basically leaving, going out into the street and coming back again.
The train is back, my friends! You guys made it! You fucking made it!
And not to be outdone by Doghouse Rose, the Dreadnoughts actually did their little wall of death, which I actually got to participate in because partway into it I thought, well, I got to get into this mosh pit. I know that I'm just out of the hospital. I know I've just done this epic sprint to Meeple Mart, but I can't go to a Dreadnoughts show and not be part of the pit. So yeah, I got to get in there and have some fun too. Before I did so though, I was standing off to the right. You can see in some of the videos that I filmed at the beginning of the show where I'm on the far front right corner looking to the left at the stage. And what you don't see is that I'm standing directly in front of the curtain that goes to the backstage room, and then from that room the bands go on stage. But there was a little shelf just behind the curtain where I was standing that had a case of waters, and I'm standing there in this absolute oven of a venue that had to have been over 100 Fahrenheit easily, well over 100 Fahrenheit or 40 Celsius or what, but it was ridiculous. So about halfway through the show, I kind of reached my arm through the curtain, grabbed a bottle of water, chugged it, and then at the very end of the show, when I was just drenched in sweat and probably about as dehydrated as I was when I went into the hospital, I helped myself to another bottle of water there. So I was pretty glad that I found this case of water sitting behind the curtain there to refresh myself in the midst of that crazy, crazy heat.
Countryside, well, enter the hyenas, enter the hyenas. Why relate to the game, to present your day. It's the time, opens up the rise, and goes to Ukraine, goes to Ukraine.
Now, one thing the Dreadnoughts do at every show, as far as I know, at least every one that I've seen, is they get the crowd to crowd surf their drummer from the stage to the bar, where the drummer gets a drink, and then they crowd surf him back to the stage. Now, this was, again, with apologies to staff members, because there were signs up saying no crowd surfing. Partly, I think, because the ceiling of this venue was so low, like the bright lights were right there. But anyways, they succeeded in doing this crowd surfing stunt.
Where the cocks to crow, way down in Florida. Them girls all dance to the old banjo, and we'll roll the woodpile down. Rolling, rolling, rolling the whole world round. Round, got our minds on the Georgia line, and we'll roll the woodpile down. Oh, what can you do in Tampa Bay, way down in Florida? But give them flush candles all your pay, and we'll roll the woodpile down. Here we go, rolling, rolling, rolling the whole world round. Round, got our minds on the Georgia line, and we'll roll the woodpile down. Round, Liverpool girls ain't none no combs, way down in Florida. They comb their hair with a clipper backbone, and we'll roll the woodpile down. Here we go, rolling, rolling, rolling the whole world round. Round, got our minds on the Georgia line. friends, here he comes! And tonight, my friends, little did you know that you are going to participate in a Dreadnoughts first. That's right. Jungle Jim has 2 beers.
Not only that, but when they got the drummer to the stage, I don't know if somebody else wanted a drink, but they decided to do it a second time. So the crowd sent him back to the bar. He got a second drink and back to the stage. And apparently we had the honor of being the first in history to see this event happen twice at a Dreadnoughts show. So it's quite a special occasion there. So like I said, I did enjoy myself in the pit, and in the midst of my fun, I did kind of fall down twice in the pit, partly from just the absolute sweat and moisture in the room making the floor so slippery, and partly from just kind of spinning in circles and acting crazy. But punk crowds are just the best. Like both times I fell down, people were pushing people back, grabbing me to pick me up. And the second time it happened, this one guy in particular was, even when I was standing up, he was holding people back from me. He was watching me really carefully to make sure I was okay, that I had got my footing under me again, that I was good to go. And he was just protecting me. So, you know, that's just the kind of thing you see at a punk show, which is really cool. And I certainly felt like I needed to go back to the hospital by the time this show was over, but it was so worth it. The Dreadnoughts are the best. There's just such an amazing live band. And so I got home in time to recuperate for a couple of days before the next event. 3 days after the Dreadnoughts show, on Sunday, May 26th, I picked up my boys from their mom and I took them to the Wentworth Medieval Fair. As I have a fun, I had not, but when I looked it up, like this type of Brody Dahl lyrics are really like this type of Brody Dahl, sort of something along these lines. And the Dreadnoughts themselves, I think the lead singer